What looks like seafood, smells like seafood, and tastes like seafood, but doesn't come from the sea?
I don't know.
Crawfish.
Okay.
It's a riddle.
Oh, right.
Sometimes riddles aren't funny.
That's true.
Hungry Squared, bringing you the best food talk anywhere.
Welcome to the Hungry Squared podcast, where the brain and belly meet. I'm Sharon from the Wasatch Cooking Guide.
And I'm Ike from Sharon's house.
This week we're talking about crawfish.
Yay!
Let's talk about it.
It's all the food talk you're looking for. Hungry Squared, yeah, Hungry Squared.
Hey, Sharon.
Hi.
How's your week been?
It's been good.
Good. What'd you eat this week?
I've been eating a lot of fruit.
What kind of fruit?
I've been eating a lot of watermelon, as you know, because we bought a giant watermelon for camping that we didn't finish. And we have a lot of cherries in our house.
We do?
Because they're in season. And so I've been eating a lot of cherries as well. So that's what I've been eating for breakfast at work.
Nice.
Have you eaten anything good this week?
I did. I had some crawfish.
Oh.
Because, as you may know, we went crawfishing on Sunday.
I might know. I was there. Sweet. How did you make the crawfish?
Boiled it and dipped it in butter.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Is that how you gave it to me?
Yes.
Because I wasn't there when you cooked it?
Yes, it was.
Oh, okay.
And was it okay?
Yeah, it was good.
All right, then.
What? I wasn't saying anything. I think it's good. All right. We have some listener mail today before we get down to our topic at hand.
Listener mail.
Ike, do you have that?
I do. Our listener mail comes from Tina. She says, "Hi, ladies. Thanks for the egg podcast. I recently had a conversation with my 16-year-old niece about eggs kept at room temperature. Your facts help support what I told her. I couldn't wait to text her. Around 2010, I took an egg class at Williams-Sonoma store. I was unaware they taught the Gordon Ramsay way. They omitted creme fraiche, but I am definitely interested in trying it. During that class, I learned how to poach and make a frittata. Scrambled are still my favorite. Thanks for another great episode."
Nice.
Very nice.
Thanks for writing us, Tina. Ike, what's your favorite way to eat eggs?
Probably scrambled.
Really? I would have guessed an omelet.
Well, that's still scrambled. It's just got stuff in it.
Right, but they're scrambled together.
True.
It's
but
not separate curds.
If I'm eating eggs by itself, scrambled, or maybe over easy. How about you?
Well, if you listen to the egg episode, you would know that I like eggs always.
But that's not your favorite
everybody,
way.
Ike still needs to catch up.
Yes.
Feel free to email us at hungrysquared@gmail.com and harass Ike for not catching up on podcasts. No, I like eggs pretty much most ways that you can make an egg. Yeah.
I don't think that you're fully answering the question by dodging that.
What?
You like all eggs?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like hard-boiled, soft-boiled. I like scrambled. I prefer a softer scramble than a harder scramble, though. I also like the over easy, but mostly over medium, because I like it to be a little bit warmer and more set on the white.
So you can't make a decision, is what you're saying?
I like everything. You should know. You should know that I like lots of things and have a hard time making decisions.
This is true.
And now for the main course.
All right. Let's get down to our topic at hand, which is crawfish.
My bugs.
Yes. So crawfish, let's talk about what they are a little bit. So last week we had some guests on our show, and that was really fun. So thank you guys for coming on. And they did the Scandinavian or Swedish take on crawfish.
Yes.
So we're doing the southern take, the U.S. southern take on crawfish.
The right way.
So crawfish range from about 3 to 6 inches long, and they weigh 2 to 8 ounces, mostly. There are a Tasmanian crawfish that's only found in Tasmania.
Yes.
That weighs about, I think it's like 8 pounds.
I think it was 8 pounds, yes.
And then there's the Murray crawfish, which is found in the Murray River in Australia. That's about half that size, and it's about a little over 4 pounds.
And
Those
they get pretty
giant.
big. Yeah.
But just regular crawfish or crayfish or mud bugs or crawdads.
Or, yeah, anything. Whatever you want to call them, they're all the same.
Right. So in the US and Sweden, so pretty much everywhere that crawfish, we're going to call them crawfish
Yeah,
for
'cause
all
that's-
intents and purposes because we think that that is the correct way to say it. Everywhere that you get crawfish, other than the two places that we listed, Australia and Tasmania, they're going to be about 3 to 6 inches long and 2 to 8 ounces. They're popular in France, Australia, Scandinavia, like we've talked about, and parts of the US, especially Louisiana, where we call them crawfish or sometimes mud bugs.
Mud bugs. Get your mud bugs.
So there are some coastal crustaceans like spiny or rock lobster.
Sure.
Those are sometimes mistakenly called saltwater crawfish or crayfish, but they're actually not because they're not the same species.
Right. You wouldn't find any crawfish in saltwater, though, correct?
Correct. They're all freshwater. So Louisiana is known as the crawfish capital, some say, of the world. I'm pretty sure everybody in the South will say that.
Yes, absolutely.
One of the reasons being is that in the late 80s, Louisiana produced about 90% of the crawfish that was harvested in the world, of which 70% was locally consumed.
Absolutely. They eat a lot of crawfish down there.
And Louisiana loves its crawfish so much that on July 14th, 1987, Governor David Treen approved a law designating the crawfish as the official state crustacean.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do any other states have a state crustacean?
No, I don't think so. Do you know?
No, I don't know of any other one.
I've certainly not heard it, but I could see Maine having like the lobster be their state crustacean.
Sure.
I don't know.
I don't know how many crustaceans are in other states as well.
Well, I mean, you've got like the eastern seaboard where you've got a lot of lobster and crab and stuff like that.
Sure. I'm thinking more landlocked.
Oh,
states.
Sure. Well, Louisiana's not landlocked though.
No, it's true.
So did you know that there is a Cajun legend about how crawfish came to be in Louisiana?
I do know this tale.
Would you be okay if I shared it with everybody else?
Please do.
So we'll just back up a second here. So something about Ike and I is we've known each other for almost 8 years.
Mm-hmm. Or more.
No.
Whatever.
No, it's like, anyways, it's been a bit. It's been a bit.
It's been a while.
So, but one of the first things that we bonded over was that we've both spent a great deal of time living in Louisiana.
Yes.
And it was funny because when we've told other people about, I'm from this town in Louisiana and I lived in this town in Louisiana, nobody really knows what you're talking about unless you say New Orleans.
Mm.
But both of us knew exactly where the other one was from because we'd both been there before. And so that was really exciting.
Yeah, it was.
To meet somebody in Utah, of all places, that knew where the other one was from in Louisiana. So that's also one of the reasons why we're doing this episode together, because we're so qualified.
Yes.
we're
so
very qualified. That's a joke. So anyway, this Cajun legend. The Cajuns, who are also known as Acadians, were exiled they originally came from Nova Scotia in the 1700s. And the legend goes that the lobsters in Nova Scotia missed them so much that they went across country to find them. So the journey was so long and dangerous because that's a pretty far journey.
It's a really far
trip.
For a lobster especially.
Yeah. So it was so long and dangerous that the lobsters began to shrink in size. And by the time they found them in Louisiana, they'd shrunk so much that they hardly looked like lobsters at all. And the Cajuns renamed them Crawfish.
Yes.
And a great festival was held in their honor, which is why we hold so many crawfish festivals today.
There's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It probably would have been faster if they'd have gone around the coastline, but...
No. Then we wouldn't have the crawfish that we know and love. They'd still be lobsters.
Well, I love lobsters too.
But lobsters are harder to catch, especially if you're in a landlocked state like we are.
That's true.
So, speaking of catching...
Yes. How do you catch them?
Yes.
How do you catch a crawfish?
Yeah. Inquiring minds want to know, because I'm teasing everybody that you can get crawfish in a landlocked state.
Well, you can. In fact, crawfish are found in almost every state, I believe, if not every state. I didn't see any in my research. I couldn't find any state that doesn't have some form of crawfish or another. A lot are native to your state. A lot of them have been brought in, as well as migrated, maybe. I'm not sure how some of the non-native species get introduced. I know some people have introduced them, brought some of the red swamp crawfish from Louisiana. You can find those in some waters here in Utah. Most of them are going to be a different type, depending on your area.
Yeah, I was reading online about how some people keep them as pets, which I find really entertaining.
Yes.
And
that question was posed to me on Sunday, by the way.
By Christian?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. No, he can't have a crawfish. He has a guinea pig.
Anyway, he loves to eat.
Ike's 12-year-old wants a pet crawfish.
He loves to eat them too much. I don't think it would last for too long.
Probably not. But I was reading how people keep them as pets, and Louisiana and some other countries like China and some other places consider them invasive species. Mm-hmm. So that's why they eat so many of them, because it kind of doesn't matter because they'll still be there.
Right.
But I think it's kind of like how it happens, where you read in Florida in the Everglades, somebody let a python loose, but they're not native to the Everglades. So I think people just kind of let them loose. Right. And I think that's how so they're not necessarily migrating so much as people are putting them where they don't belong.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, in order to catch a crawfish, they're all basically the same, and they all taste very similar. The best way to do that is with a trap, but you can put a piece of raw chicken on a line and stick it in the water and catch them that way. Like they'll just hang on to it and you just pull them right up. And
are you catching them one at a time that way though?
One or two or three at a time. Yeah, sure. I mean, it's going to take you a while, but it depends on how many are you going to catch them for fun? Are you feeding, yourself, or are you trying to feed an entire family or have a crawfish boil? There's a completely different different methods for what you're looking for. If you're just out there having fun with the kids, a piece of string and a chicken leg is going to be just fine.
Nice. So cooked or raw chicken?
Raw chicken. And there's a big myth about having rotten. You want it to be pretty ripe, like the spoiled meat. It tends to attract them. That doesn't seem to be the case. I think you will catch more with some fairly fresh meat. It does need to be raw. I mean, I'm sure cooked would work fine too, but for best results, raw chicken. Fish is actually what most people try to catch it on. Something that's a little oily, something like salmon, or even just like the fish guts. If you're out there, using trimmings from the grocery store, I'm sure that they'd be able to give you some trimmings from the fish that they cut up.
Huh. But raw works better than cooked.
Yes.
Okay.
Because of the smell. So the crawfish are attracted to the smell. So they
are they attracted to the rotten smell?
No, they don't seem to be.
Spoiled?
Yeah, because I mean, who wants to eat spoiled meat? Apparently they don't either. So.
Okay. So describe the trap.
So there's a few different kinds of traps. There's a square trap that's used. And it sits. You just throw it in. It sits on the bottom of where you don't want to go too deep. Most of the crawfish are going to be right there, a few feet deep at most.
Right. They burrow in the mud and they kind of live among the rocks and stuff like that.
Right. And so they are nocturnal. They are active during the day. I mean, we caught ours during the day, but they're much more active nocturnally at night.
Okay.
So you throw your trap in, and the best thing to do is throw your trap in, leave it overnight, and you should have quite a few. But you want to make sure that you have enough bait in your trap to feed them, to keep them occupied, because once they have...
Can they escape the trap?
It's not impossible. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. So the way the traps are designed is that there's a small opening. In the square cages, there's an opening that kind of goes down beneath it goes up, and then it kind of has a big drop off, so that the inside of the cage is kind of hung over so that they can't immediately climb right back out. And we can put something on the show notes to kind of show that, but, and then with the round traps, they're more like a barrel, and then they have, like an inverted cone on each side, and they go in the hole, and then it's difficult for them to get out. It's difficult for them to get out on the cone.
So you're talking about the round trap.
Yeah. The round trap is kind of a cylinder with the inverted cone, and the crawfish come in through the cone, and it's very difficult for them to get back out. But I mean, it's not impossible. So they could definitely figure their way out. That's why you like to have enough meat in there for the amount of time you're going to keep the trap
How much meat, if you're going to put your trap in overnight, how much meat would you be putting in there? If you're using like raw chicken.
It depends on the size of the trap. I would imagine that probably a full chicken leg, like with the drumstick and the thigh attached, would probably be more than enough. When you put your bait into the trap, it's better to have it suspended somehow. There's crawfish or bait traps, have it suspended. So you don't want it sitting on the bottom of the cage or against the side of the cage, because they can eat it from the outside, and they won't come into. You want them coming into the trap to eat the food.
Gotcha. So, and the traps are a cage material, like plastic or
metal. There's so many different kinds of different traps. I don't know if it was covered with winter, but they have the Swedish types of traps are actually kind of more of a flimsier material that can compress and then spring open. It's like a netting around a giant spring. So that's a little bit of a different style. They work just as well. I like the barrel with the inverted cones. Those seem to work the best from what I've found. They have a couple of different types of net traps. It's really kind of preference. They're not expensive. They're fun to have. Kids love playing with them, catching crawfish. So, I mean, if you have some in your area, at $10 gets you a trap, and you can throw some meat in there and go have some fun with the kids.
Yeah, we had a ton of fun with our kids. Their favorite thing is video games.
Right.
They've been basically home all summer playing video games, but this was something that really, it got them outside and it got them excited.
Yeah.
They both like to eat crawfish, so I guess we're pretty lucky that way, but it's really good tasting food. It's sweeter, I think, meat than maybe like a shrimp.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun to do. It's educational, kind of see where your food comes from, but it's really fun, to get your kids out there and kind of active. And it's a little bit of a no-brainer. You don't really have to have that much talent.
No, there's not a lot of technique.
You're just setting the trap. Like, you don't have to cast a line like you would for fly fishing or anything like that. You're just setting this trap out and coming back to it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really easy. You can get, the kids can do it. You do want to check your local regulations for fishing. I believe most states require you to have a fishing license to throw a crawfish trap, but just check into that so you don't get in trouble.
Right. So let's see. So we talked about bait, preferably raw meat. Is there any other type of bait that would work? Like, could you use peanut butter?
I don't know I've never seen anything about peanut butter. Some people say that you can use cat food by just throwing the cat food in there, like taking a can of it, something that has a fish base to it, and then putting some holes in there. There's a lot of argument about it. Some people say it works better than anything else out there, and some people say it don't work at all. So whatever you think is best, you can give it a shot. If you feel like chicken works better than fish, use that. If you feel like fish works better than chicken, use that. There's no real right or wrong way to do that. It just seems to work best if you don't have something that's spoiled.
Okay, cool.
The other thing about their diet is that they mostly feed on algae, so they're not going to be too far down. They're going to be where the algae is developed. They eat a lot of different things, including most of any types of meat. So any of the meats that we discussed would be fine. If you have pork, that'd probably work too. They're also cannibalistic. So when you catch them, you want to be careful. It's not good to put them in a bucket with just water if you're going to be catching a lot of them. If you have too many in the bucket, they can actually breathe up all the air and drown.
Oh, they'll breathe all of the air in the bucket?
Yeah, if you have too many crawfish, and I don't know, this is what I've heard. I don't know if this is actually scientifically proven, but they do say that if there's not a lot of water in the bucket and you put too many crawfish in there, they will breathe out all the air and drown. Because when depending on what state you're in, you can transport them alive. Here in Utah, you can't. You have to kill them on the spot before you can transport them. So you can't boil them alive.
Or you could if you had a stove right there by where you're camping or where you're catching them.
I believe so.
Okay.
So
how do you transport them? If you're transporting them alive, do you have to just have enough water to cover them in that bucket?
So what you would do is have something just to keep them wet, and cold is better. But you don't want to totally freeze them out. You just want it to be like
it anesthetizes them a little bit.
Right. Yeah. So you could put them in a cooler with some ice that, has a little bit of water in it, just as long as they stay moist, wet.
Okay. And then you want to make sure that you give them some food, right? If you're transporting them alive, they're not on ice, or if they're in that bucket, so they don't become cannibalistic.
That would probably work. If you cool them off, they're going to be not active.
Oh, okay.
So that it shouldn't be a problem transporting them that way.
Oh, okay. So just keep them wet, put them in a cooler on ice or something.
Yeah, and there's some people say you can put them in layers. Put a layer of crawfish down, and then put something in between it, like burlap or something that stays wet, and wet and cool, and put another layer on over it, and just layer them like that until you're ready to cook them or whatever you're going to do with them.
Sweet. Okay, so let's talk about cooking them.
Yes.
Can you talk about prep? Christian told us something really that he felt that our podcast listeners needed to know at dinner tonight.
Well, you would do that probably after.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So just like any other shellfish, you're going to have your intestine that needs to be dealt with. A lot of people elect to not do anything about it. It's just like having a shrimp. Do you devein it or do you not?
Oh, my preference is to devein, mostly just because that grosses me out.
Sure. And I'm sure it does to a lot of people. Most of the responses you will get in the South is, I'm too busy eating them to worry about that.
Yeah, I know.
So that's really a personal choice. It's not too hard to pop it out of there. One thing with crawfish is that you have to do quite a bit of work for the little bit of meat that you get out of it.
Right.
It's definitely worth it, but it is some work. So after you cook them, it's pretty easy to pop that out of there. I'm not sure. I wouldn't do it before cooking them, because then you're just going to kind of have a mess. So you want to cook them first, and then as you are shelling them and pulling the meat out, it's pretty easy to just kind of use a knife or your thumb or whatever and just squeeze that out of there.
Okay.
There are different things you can do prior to this, that if you want to clean them out, you can put them in some salt solution, or just leave them for a few days. Like if you're going to wait a few days, keep them alive for a few days before you eat them, because they're not eating anything. Eventually they'll just clear themselves out.
Oh, but you have to keep them alive though.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You don't want to, they'd have to still be alive in order for that to happen.
Okay. So you don't necessarily want to go catch a crawfish, let them hang out for a few days and see what happens, kind of a thing. You want to make sure that you're keeping them alive and kind of tending to them.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Different ways to cook crawfish. There's probably about 1 million.
Yeah, absolutely.
The most popular way is the crawfish boil. That's what you'll see when you go to Louisiana all the time. People are having crawfish boils when they have these huge festivals. In Shreveport, every Memorial Day, they have Mudbug Madness. Mm-hmm. And it's just huge, like trestle tables as far as the eye can see. And then the crawfish are heaped up about 3 feet high. And then they've got trash cans dispersed around the tables, so you can put the shells in there.
Yeah. And with the crawfish boil, basically what happens is that they boil it and they dump the crawfish after they're cooked just right directly on the table. And there's no plates, you've got your corn, your potatoes and everything just poured out on the table.
It's basically on a tarp or some newspaper or something like that. It's not fancy.
No.
It's very utilitarian. Basically to get the most bang for your buck, to get the most crawfish that you can. So there's no plates. Sometimes there's bibs.
Sure. Yeah. Cause I mean,
and you'll see like rolls of paper towels every once in a while.
Absolutely.
Too.
Yeah. Cause I mean, it's going to make a mess, especially if you're dipping it in butter, if the different ways that you can prepare it and eat it, your hands are going to get a little greasy peeling off all that crawfish.
Or a lot of greasy. Usually when you do a crawfish boil, you'll have boiling seasoning. We will put a link in the show notes to the Louisiana Crawfish Company. They're pretty good crawfish. They're really reputable to get your crawfish from. They have shipped over 1.5 million pounds of crawfish in the last 30 years.
That's awesome.
They also have an easy price comparison online to their competitors, and they will price match if you can find a different price. They'll also price match. But they kind of know how to do it right. Justin Smith, who's one of their co-founders, or co-owners, I should say, talked to Thrillist.com. It's that travel and food website, and talked about how to have a perfect crawfish boil, even if you've never done it before.
Awesome.
So, live crawfish is, like we said, preferable. So you'd boil them alive. From the Louisiana Crawfish Company, you can also get them frozen. You can just get tail meat.
Pre-shelled. Okay.
I think they will ship them live as well. I'm not super sure about that, but there's a bunch of different options that you can choose. But you want to make sure that you have enough for everybody.
Right.
So if this crawfish dish of yours is more of an appetizer, that's kind of like what we had the other night.
Yeah, it wasn't that much.
Yeah. Again, we were fishing during the day. And
we were only out there a couple hours. So
yeah, we were kind of on a time crunch. And so we basically had an appetizer. So in that case, you'd want about 1 to 3 pounds per person. Now, keep in mind that a pound of crawfish, most of that pound is shell.
Right.
It's a very small ratio of meat to shell. And the usable parts of the crawfish, a lot of people will suck the head because they think that's super duper tasty. And sometimes you can get claw meat.
Depending on the size of it.
Depending on the size of your crawfish. I enjoy the claw meat and the tail meat.
And that's...
I'm not one to suck the head, but a lot of people will frown on me for saying that.
It depends for me on what they're using it for the boil, because that's mostly where that flavor is coming from is
it'll go to the head.
It'll go into the head. And so if it's a good boil, then it's going to be pretty tasty. If it's just in water and salt, meh. Yeah, you can skip it and you'll be fine.
If you are serving it as a main course, you're going to want about 3 to 5 pounds.
Per person?
Yeah. A native Louisianian will eat 5 to 10 pounds.
Sure.
Per person. Traditionally, crawfish are sold by the sack. If you're buying your own and not fishing for them, those sacks will range about 30 to 35 pounds. And depending on their size, you're going to get about 500 crawfish in that sack.
Right.
So you need to clean them, just the outside of the crawfish. Right. You want to make sure that they're clean before you throw them in the pot to boil. Otherwise, they're going to taste like dirt.
They're called mud bugs for a reason.
And swamp, because that's where they come from. So that's going to affect your taste. So you also need some equipment if you're going to do crawfish boil. So Justin recommends a pot size of 2 to 1 quart to a pound ratio. So a 60 quart pot will cook about 30 pounds of crawfish.
Yeah. And you're going to need a big stove for that. So like a single propane burner or something for that to sit on.
So if you've got what's really popular, like where I've been and people who've done crawfish boils where I've attended, is they have like a freestanding camp stove, like a camp chef stove,
right, sure.
Where it's like a 1 or 2 burner. And they're putting a giant pot on that, just freestanding propane type stove. Then you also need a large ice chest for steaming, which I totally forgot that step, because some people will just boil it and call it good. A lot of people will just boil them for a couple of minutes, then they steam it in an ice chest.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's mostly the kind that I've had have been cooked that way. They end up being a little bit more tender.
Okay.
Because they're not boiled as long. And then he also recommends another large ice chest for the beverages.
Right.
And you want it to be crawfish season or around thereabout. Crawfish usually hit markets in December or January, and then they disappear towards the end of summer.
Right. Which is a pretty big window. So
yeah, that's when the crawfish go back to the mud and burrow back in their holes in the swamp and stuff like that. So let's see. Now, a crawfish boil, of course, we've mentioned the boil. So people will actually call it the boil, quote unquote, the boil. And that's the seasoning that you put into the boiling water. It's usually like if you are cooking a ton, like, this 30, 35 pound sack of crawfish outside in this giant pot on your camp stove, you're going to use a whole bag of boil. That's usually anywhere from 1 to 3 pounds of seasoning
Right.
go into that water.
Which is a lot of seasoning.
It is. It's a ton of seasoning. But, and depending on your seasoning, it can be good or just kind of meh. There's a lot of seasonings that rely a lot on salt. So sometimes it can just be really, really salty. So just kind of watch out for what kinds of seasoning boil you're using.
And you definitely don't even need a boil. You can just do salt and water if necessary.
If necessary. I prefer boiling seasoning just because it tastes better, I think.
So what is in a boil seasoning?
Seasoning, it's kind of like a giant bag of Cajun seasoning usually.
Okay.
Also, before you add the crawfish to the boiling water, put in your vegetables.
Absolutely.
So the vegetables will also absorb your boiling seasoning and be seasoned that way. So kind of everything that you're eating matches, if you will. A lot of popular vegetables to put in the crawfish boil are corn, sausage, which isn't a vegetable, but a lot of people put that in there, potatoes, and then some type of a green thing. Sometimes it's broccoli. I've seen asparagus.
I've seen green peppers.
Green peppers are popular.
Or red peppers.
Or I've also seen artichokes.
Okay.
So something like that. Then once those are done and those are all tender, you're going to fish those out, usually with like a spider of some sort, a utensil like that. And then you add your crawfish because the veggies will stay hot for a bit. Then you add your crawfish and you put it in just for a few minutes, and then you dump it into the ice chest and close the ice chest.
Okay.
And then they steam that way.
So how long? Just like 2 to 3 minutes on that one? Because I know that like most of the crawfish, it's going to boil. When you boil it, it's going to cook pretty fast. You're only doing 5 to 7 minutes on that.
Right. It's no more than 3 minutes.
Okay.
Before you're dumping it in the ice chest. So it's kind of like a flash boil or something, if you will, and then it steams the rest of the way.
Okay. So
pretty tender that way. So yeah. And just make sure that you've got some type of serving platters or a tarp or tablecloth or something like that.
Newspapers work great. Most put newspapers on a picnic table. Yeah, that'll work good.
Yep.
So now that you've got it all cooked up, how do you eat them?
I let somebody else peel it for me.
Yes.
I don't like peeling my own. So my dear cousin, hello Reed, if you're listening, used to, and Dave actually too, hi. They used to throw live crawfish on me when I was little, and it would crawl in my hair. So when we go crawfishing and stuff, they would, like just at the park, they would throw it down my back, in my hair and stuff. And so it gives me the heebie-jeebies even now. So I have somebody else peel it for me, which if you're at a crawfish boil, is super inconvenient. Some of the crawfish boils that I've been to in the past in Louisiana, though, they usually grill up something on the grill as well. So, you'll have like alligator kebabs or just like some chicken and steak and stuff like that too. Right. So how do you eat it?
Okay. So to peel a crawfish, you grab it behind the head, and then you grab the tail part. You'll see it's kind of jointed there. You've got your little segments, and you're going to grab it right after the big segment where the head is, right behind the claw. And then it's going to come out pretty easy. All you have to do is kind of twist it, and it's just all going to come out from the inside of the shell. Yeah,
you don't need any special like pliers or anything like that, like you would with crab or lobster.
Yeah. And then, so once you have that, you can suck the head or just discard it at that point. And if the claws are big enough, you definitely want to peel into those. But from that point, you just take the tail, and the first 2 or 3 segments, if you just pop those off, just peel those 2 off, peel those 2 or 3 segments off, you can just pull the meat. The meat shall come right out of the rest of the tail. And so you'll have a nice little, inch or 2, depending on how big the crawfish was, inch or 2 size of meat. And then you can do what you want with it. Dip it in butter or just, dig in.
Nice. There are, like I said, tons of recipes for crawfish. If you can think of a shrimp recipe, which there's lots of those, you could substitute crawfish for that shrimp. Some of the most popular, like I said, are these crawfish boils that we're talking about. Also étouffée.
Yeah, which is my favorite. Other than eating it, by itself, an étouffée is amazing.
Jambalaya, gumbo, fried tails, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like fried shrimp, but it's crawfish tails. Several different types of pasta dishes.
Yep.
And pies, like a meat pie,
Mm-hmm.
but they'll put crawfish in it or like a crawfish and rice combination. Those are really tasty. So if you are planning on having a crawfish boil, because it sounds so fun, because it really, really is. It's fun to get all of your friends together and eat really good food. We'll put some links in the show notes on how to procure your own crawfish if you're not going to go crawfishing for them.
Yeah.
And make sure that you play some Zydeco music or some blues or something like that to get you in the mood.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you do catch your own crawfish and you're worried about your spices and where to find it, especially if you're in the middle of nowhere, away from the coast, I believe Zatarain's makes a really good crawfish boil, and you can find that pretty much anywhere.
Yeah. And that'll be in your spices and baking section in your grocery store, usually on the lower shelves.
Yeah. And I do believe that they have it in quite a few different grocery stores. I know I've seen it here.
Yeah, I have too. You could also use Old Bay seasoning, which is like a classic standby, and then just add a few dashes of cayenne pepper or a lot of dashes, depending on how spicy you like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we did on Sunday. So
yeah, because we're in Utah.
Yes.
Don't hate us. Our podcast is brought to you by our awesome and food-loving sponsor, IKEA. On Friday, September 15th, IKEA, nationwide in the United States, is holding a Swedish crayfish party. It's an all-you-can-eat crayfish buffet. There's going to be 2 seatings, so contact an IKEA associate for details. And if you want to come celebrate the end of summer with us, come to the IKEA in Draper. That's the IKEA in Draper, Utah. And Ike and I will be there. Winter and Lee are going to be in Italy.
Ooh, lucky.
Yeah. But we are going to be at the IKEA in Draper, and we're going to have a quiz and a giveaway. So you can get some fun Hungry Squared merchandise as well as some fun IKEA merchandise.
Awesome.
So join us on Friday, September 15th.
Yes. And look into IKEAs in your area as well, because there will be other participating stores.
Let's have a food fight.
Food fight, food fight, food fight, food fight. It's winter.
This is the segment where you can email us with your relationship questions relating to food. You can email us at hungrysquared@gmail.com.
We are in no way professional relationship experts, but you should totally listen to us anyway. If you need professional help, please seek it out.
Food fight, food fight. The food fight segment of the show. Here we go.
Okay.
Okay, what's the question of the week?
So this week's question is from the Lunch Mooch.
Lunch Mooch.
It says, "Hi, Winter and Sharon." But I guess we can substitute Ike and Sharon.
Okay.
My boss always insists on paying when we all go out for lunch.
Awesome.
Let me read this story. Let me read this letter. I appreciate his generosity, but sometimes it seems excessive. My coworkers and I go out to lunch most days. What do I do to pay my own way? I don't want to seem like a mooch, but I feel like I need to put my foot down. Thanks, Lunch Mooch. Okay, now you can talk.
Thank you.
Just kidding.
That's a good question. I don't know.
You really don't?
No. So...
I mean, that's okay if you don't.
It's a difficult situation to be in, because I don't know what your... relationship is like with your boss. It sounds like if he's going out with you to eat pretty often, it sounds like it's pretty good. You might just have to tell him to him straight, hey, I can pay for this. I'm a big boy. I know what I'm doing. It's always nice to have your meal purchased for you by your employer. But I can see it being excessive, especially if you're going out to eat 2 or 3 times a week. Right. So
I'm on the other side of the fence here.
You think that you just let him pay all the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
I totally do. It's your boss. Here's a pro tip. Your boss makes more than you do.
This is probably true. So I can be on that side of the fence too. I mean, you may just have to suck it up there, Mooch, and just let him buy it.
Right. But I think there's other ways that you can show your boss that you appreciate it. You can bake cookies for the office, maybe bring in donuts every once in a while for breakfast.
Sure.
Just so you kind of, show that you're sort of paying your own way, as it were. Mm-hmm. If you're really set on doing it that way, you want to pay for yourself and you feel really obligated, I mean, it sounds like he's super generous and you maybe don't necessarily need to feel obligated, but it's always nice to recognize someone's generosity and to just kind of, you know, if he's doing it all the time, he could probably afford to do it all the time, whereas you probably can't.
Right.
But it would be, I think, thoughtful and respectful to, you know, at least pay it back in kind every once in a while through some other way, maybe bringing treats or a veggie tray to staff meeting or something like that.
Sure. You know, and if he's going to lunch with you that often, I imagine that you're pretty good friends, or to a certain degree, you know, like you enjoy his company more than him paying for your meal.
Right. Or you have working lunches all too often.
Right. You know, you could also be passive aggressive about it and order something and have it delivered to his office and make, you know.
Is that passive aggressive or is it just nice?
It depends. It depends on the boss.
Or if you want to make him stop, I suppose you could order the most expensive thing every single time.
Yeah. Or quit.
Oh, don't do that. If you like your boss that much, maybe you shouldn't quit.
Hey, we did the disclaimer. We're not professionals.
I think a good solution would be to thank your boss for his generosity and to maybe bring some breakfast in or some treats every once in a while.
There you go.
There you go. Thanks for joining us today for our show. You can find us at hungrysquared.com on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play Music. And please subscribe to our podcast and share our podcast with your food-loving friends and family. That helps us expand our community.
Also, follow us on Instagram at Hungry Squared. Follow us on Facebook at Hungry Squared Podcast. Do as many Facebook Live videos there as we can. And join us next week for our next episode of Food Nerd.
Okay, thanks. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Hungry Squared, yeah, Hungry Squared.